In my experience, I encounter children as young as 11, 12, and even 13 years old who are grappling with questions about relationships and emotions, often due to the pervasive influence of social media. Unfortunately, today's media is saturated with discussions surrounding sexuality, and this is reaching younger audiences at an alarming rate. Consequently, these questions are increasingly common, and as parents, I'm sure you too are hearing them. I'm frequently asked by young children, "What is a crush?" Even kids as young as first graders saying they have a crush on someone. Just recently, a group of young girls, perhaps 10, 11, or 12 years old, approached me with the same question. What exactly is a crush, and is it permissible in Islam to have one? First, let's clarify the term crush from an English language perspective, particularly within Western society. If you consult any reputable dictionary, whether it's the Oxford English Dictionary, Merriam-Webster, or Cambridge, you'll find that a crush is defined as an intense and temporary feeling of infatuation for someone, typically someone with whom you're unlikely to form a lasting relationship. While it may seem harmless, this feeling can lead individuals into potentially dangerous territory, both from an emotional and Islamic perspective. The nature of a crush can often become obsessive. People may develop a fixation on someone, whether a celebrity or a peer at school. The cause can be as trivial as seeing someone on social media who has a particular hairstyle or look that they admire, and then they spot someone at school who reminds them of that person. Suddenly, this individual becomes their crush. This type of fixation can escalate quickly. What starts as a harmless admiration can spiral into an unhealthy obsession. It's not uncommon for young people to begin stalking their crush on social media, obsessively following their every post and action. This behavior can lead to mental and emotional consequences, including an unhealthy attachment that is hard to break. When individuals experience a crush, they often start behaving differently, sometimes in ways that seem unusual or out of character. For example, some may act impulsively, like waiting outside the school or on public transportation, hoping to encounter the person they're infatuated with. They may even skip school or engage in other disruptive behaviors, all driven by their desire to be near their crush. This kind of fixation can escalate to unhealthy levels, leading to emotional and physical consequences, such as neglecting eating, drinking, or even sleep, all in the pursuit of their crush. Brothers and sisters, it's important to recognize that a crush, while seemingly innocent, can become a dangerous obsession if allowed to consume you. It can truly crush your well-being if you give in to the overwhelming desire to chase this feeling. However, it's essential to understand that having a crush is simply a natural feeling, particularly common among young people. The younger you are, the more you may experience it, as you haven't yet developed a full understanding of emotions, relationships, or life itself. As you grow older with more life experience, your focus shifts, and you begin to understand what truly matters, which lessens these fleeting feelings. When you're young, it's easy to get caught up in a fantasy world. The excitement of having a crush often leads to what's known as the butterfly feeling in your stomach. This emotional reaction is normal and natural. In fact, even older people, like those who are engaged, may experience a similar excitement when they feel a deep attraction or interest in someone. Interestingly, girls tend to express their feelings more openly, using the term crush with ease. Boys might experience similar emotions, but they often don't have the same vocabulary to describe them. Nevertheless, it's important to acknowledge that having a crush isn't necessarily a sin or something inherently wrong. It's just a natural emotional response that can be triggered by external influences, like peer conversations or what's seen on social media. As such, a crush is not something to be ashamed of or judged harshly for. It's simply a feeling that may arise without warning. It's not haram or sinful unless you allow it to develop into something more harmful or obsessive. Acting on a crush can lead to harmful consequences, and from an Islamic perspective, it becomes problematic when it's acted upon. A crush, at its core, is a romantic attraction. I like that boy, or I like that girl. And while it may feel like love, it is not love in its true form, especially for young people who are not yet ready for marriage and don't fully understand the complexities of relationships. As parents and mentors, it's crucial to have open discussions with our children, both daughters and sons, about these emotions. We need to define what a crush is and why it's important not to follow those feelings, particularly in the context of Islam. A crush, if pursued, can lead to heartache and disappointment because ultimately, it's not a real, sustainable connection. It's more of a fantasy. The feelings associated with a crush tend to be fleeting and often only last for a few weeks to a couple of months. Some individuals may experience these feelings for up to 6 months. However, rest assured that it will eventually fade. When I speak with young people who have questions about these emotions, I always encourage them to ask themselves, are you ready for marriage? Are you in a position where you can pursue a meaningful relationship, like meeting the family and discussing engagement? If the answer is no, then it's important to recognize that pursuing a crush can be self-torture. It won't lead anywhere productive. It's vital to remember that these feelings, while normal, should not dictate your actions. If you're not yet mature enough or ready to engage in serious relationships, then acting on a crush can lead you down a path that might bring unnecessary emotional distress. Having taught and counseled young people for over 16 years, I can attest to the fact that these issues are common. I've seen the same stories over and over again. Therefore, I believe it's essential for parents to educate themselves about these feelings and terminologies. Open communication with children about these topics is key. When it comes to discussions around sexuality, love, and relationships, it's essential to start talking to children at a young age, as early as 9 or 10, especially with girls who reach puberty earlier than boys. It's important to have open conversations about puberty and the changes they'll go through. These topics should be normalized in your household, allowing it to be something that parents and children can openly discuss. Let your children talk to you about their experiences and thoughts, how they feel, what they think about relationships, and even how you met their mom or dad. This conversation, while sensitive, should be one that stays within the family, so they don't feel the need to seek answers elsewhere. I learned a valuable lesson from a brother who practices this with his daughter. He often tells her that she's an angel, even joking around with playful lines like, "Did it hurt when you fell from heaven?" At first, his daughter would roll her eyes, but over time, she became accustomed to such expressions. His reasoning was simple. He wanted to beat the boys to the punch before they could use similar pickup lines on her. And when those boys did come along, she would respond with, "Oh, my dad says that to me." In doing so, he made her less vulnerable to the attention of those who might only seek to manipulate her with empty praise. Brothers and sisters, creating this environment of openness helps protect your children from those who wish to take advantage of their naivety. Now, moving on from the topic of crushes, let's touch on the concept of love. True love, especially within the context of marriage, develops over time. Love doesn't have to exist intensely at the start of a marriage. In fact, marriage often builds love gradually, and sometimes it can even cause it to diminish if not nurtured properly. It's how you work together and support each other that fosters real love in a relationship. A wise man once said to Omar, may Allah be pleased with him, that he liked someone and trusted him. Omar asked, "Have you traveled with him? Have you stayed at his house? Have you done business with him?" When the man replied, "No," Omar responded, "Then you don't truly know him." The lesson here is that often we base our feelings of affection on what we imagine someone to be or what we see on the surface. But real understanding comes only after time spent together, sharing experiences and learning about each other's character. When considering marriage, it's important to understand that you're not just uniting two individuals, you're bringing together families and, in some cases, even entire tribes. Whether it's a Lebanese, Turkish, Somali, or Asian background, Islam permits and encourages diverse unions, provided that both parties are compatible and good for each other. Through marriage, entire cultures and nations can come together. It's not just you and your partner. Marriage involves the coming together of families with all their complexities, traditions, and histories. Marriage is far from the romanticized version we often see in Hollywood, where two people walk off into the sunset as if the world around them doesn't exist. In reality, marriage involves merging two lives, often two families, and sometimes even distinct cultural backgrounds. This means it's crucial to engage with the wisdom of older people, parents, mentors, and trusted family members who can provide perspective and guidance. There's absolutely nothing wrong with asking your mother, "What is a crush?" or sharing your feelings with her about a boy you like. Let your parents guide you and don't hesitate to have open discussions with them. It's important to recognize the limitations of peers. While your friends at school or those your age may offer emotional support, like lending a listening ear, hugging, or comforting you, their advice is often limited to their own experiences. A 13-year-old girl giving advice to another 13-year-old girl is likely to only reflect what she knows, which may not always be the best or most informed guidance. In contrast, seeking advice from a trusted adult, such as a mother, aunt, teacher, or older sister, can offer more nuanced, experienced, and sound guidance. In Arabic, we have a concept for different types of relationships, and one of these is called rafiq, which refers to a companion or friend who provides emotional support. However, this type of friend is limited in their ability to truly advise or guide you. In fact, in the Quran, 8 different types of friends are mentioned, and a rafiq is seen as someone you can lean on, but who isn't necessarily equipped to provide deeper guidance. This is why having someone older and responsible in your life, like your father, uncle, older brother, or mother, is so important. These individuals invested in your well-being can offer advice rooted in wisdom and experience, and what happens to you will affect them as well. This kind of guidance is essential for making informed decisions, especially in matters as important as relationships and marriage.